What's up, my wizards? It's Dev. Mtg, we on that magic. And today, I'm going to close the door on Modern Horizons coverage by flipping the script just a little bit, because this week everyone's coming out with their top 5 and top 10 list. The hype is at like Dominaria, War of the Spark levels, hovering around there somewhere. Almost every card in the set has a set of supporters, and a lot of cards have a corresponding set of detractors too, don't get me wrong. But suffice to say, it's tough and it's difficult to find cards in this set that have like no hype whatsoever. But that said, I'm going to try to switch things up a little bit here by trying to point out 10 cards that I don't think are getting enough press, enough praise, enough attention, or they're just not being taken seriously enough by the competitive side of the Magic community. So it was a tough one to put together, but we think we figured it out. Here's the top 10 Modern Horizons sleepers. But of course, before we jump into it, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, YouTube things, blah, blah. Well, you got to get that out of the way so we can talk Magic here. Now, for our honorable mention to kick the video off, I want to start at the end with Endling. Was that a professor joke? we don't have dad jokes in our community. We have professor jokes. But anyway, sorry, professor. On to Endling. This card is definitely getting some press. It's getting some attention, and that's one of the reasons it's in the honorable mention slot. Because people are talking about this, there's some kind of hype for it, but not for competitive play whatsoever. Mostly, people are just kind of jacked about this because it's the appropriately named end of the Morphling cycle. Black was the last color that needed a Morphling. They finally got a Ling to call their own. The other thing, though, that's kind of making competitive players not laugh at this, but sort of, wave it off. I'm not too interested in that, is the casting cost. 4 mana, especially for a relatively understated creature, is not a great price in Modern, especially. And if you follow the Ling rules, this actually costs 5 mana to cast, because all Morphling type creatures have like a protective ability that costs 1 mana, and it effectively raises the casting cost of the said Ling by 1 mana, because casting a Morphling type creature without the mana to back it up with its protective ability is a fool's errand. So it's kind of hard to be taken seriously when you're taking this card seriously. And I understand that, but just pause for a second to appreciate how well all of the abilities work together. If you have enough mana, you can make this have both Menace and Death Touch, so it's a really crazy attacking creature that they're going to have to lose a couple of blockers on if they want to block it at all. If they don't block it, you can hit them for 5 pretty easily by pumping this up. But that said, if they do block it, then if you have another black mana available, you can just give it Undying. So your opponent loses 2 creatures, and you get back an even bigger creature. There's Soul Diviner. That's a new card, but it does the thing you want to do. It takes the counter off of this, draws a card too, so you can just keep giving this Undying over and over, if that's what you want to do. But I just think it's a fairly decent creature, and although, again, there are definitely things keeping it in the honorable mention slot, I don't think it's going to see Modern play tomorrow or anything, but at the same time, really interestingly designed Morphling, and I think there might be a little bit more here than we're initially giving it credit for. But all that said, in the Endling, it doesn't even matter. I would imagine this card probably won't see a lot of Modern play, so it's the honorable mention. Let's get on to the actual list here, though. Number 10, Etchings of the Chosen. Now again, don't get me wrong, this card's playability is not exactly set in stone, if you see what I did there, but at the same time, it's a 3 mana Anthem effect for any tribal deck. It seems pretty good. That also gives your creatures indestructible, which is very good as well. It's wrath protection. It's a way to, have an advantage in combat, and that's just seems great to me. You might have to sacrifice a creature or two, but there are plenty of tribes that can turn that into an advantage real quick. We just saw like the 2 mana vampire that whenever another creature dies, it gives all your vampires +1/+1 counters. And so Etching seems actually pretty decent with that, maybe in the Modern format. I think that, 3 mana is a bit much for Anthem effects in Modern, but at the same time, this is more than just an Anthem effect, and does so much for the creature-based decks that might want an effect like this. And again, it goes in pretty much any tribe that can support Orzhov, which is kind of more than you might think. So I think that Etchings definitely has a chance. Now, for number 9, I really didn't want this card on the list, but I just can't stop thinking about Saddled Rhyme Stag. I wanted to come up with like a cute little rhyme or some bars about Saddled Rhyme Stag, but the only thing I can really think to rhyme it with is dime bag, and I don't want to get demonetized. Like, doper than a dime bag? That could work. I just did it, so hopefully I don't get demonetized. But anyway, instead of that, I'll just talk about the competitive playability of Saddled Rhyme Stag, because I have done two Scryfall searches just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Just for 2-drop green modern creatures. Now, as you might imagine, there are a lot of them. So I've spent a lot of time in these Scryfall searches looking for creatures, in green specifically, that are 2-drops, that can be 4 power by turn 3. And there's just not a lot of them. Like, if you count out, like, Lawn War Elf starts and stuff, like, what is a 2-drop creature that can be 4 power on turn 3? And there are very, very few that even come close to fitting the bill, and you have to do so much work jumping through hoops, like Avatar of the Resolute, for instance. You have to usually have, you know, a +1/+1 counter on a creature on turn 1. And that's, it's just not guaranteed, you know? So many hoops to jump through. Like, there are some cards that you might rather play in a mono-green Stompy list, but honestly, I think Rhyme Stag is in the conversation, if nothing else. I don't know if it's in the upper echelon of 2-drops you might play in Stompy. And I don't think this makes Stompy a thing by itself, but we did also get like Hex Drinker in this set as a great Stompy 1-drop. And as a Stompy 2-drop, think about this. Are you not going to play a creature on turn 3? In Stompy? Are you not going to do that? No. Like, on turn 3 and 4, Stompy's whole plan is to play the biggest creature at that part on the curve that it possibly can, usually. And at that point, you got yourself a 4/4 attacker. And that ain't half bad, Sally. So I actually think that Rhyme Stag is a card worth talking about, if nothing else. But my number 8 is another green 2-drop, if you want to put it that way. But I think this one's just a little bit better than Rhyme Stag, objectively, to say the least. And that is Ice Fang Coddle. He's cold-blooded because he's a snake, but also I should really stop explaining jokes. It's not how you YouTube. This is, just apart from the snow text, just picture it, cover it up. I can't do that because my arm goes under the card when I edit. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. Don't look at the snow text whatsoever. And just look at this as a 2-mana flash, flying, like it's an Elvish Visionary, right? it's an Elvish Visionary, 2-mana 1/1 that draws you a card, but it also has flash and flying, and that's good. It's like Metal Gear, because that's a solid snake. But number 7 on my list is another 2-mana creature that draws a card. I have to put this one in air quotes, but I think this one might be better than Ice Fang Coddle. It's a lot easier to cast, and the creature types are probably a little bit more desirable, especially in the modern format. That, my friends, is Watcher for Tomorrow. And starting tomorrow, really today, when most of you are watching this video, but anyway, I'm getting ahead of my point. Starting tomorrow, you need to watch for this card, Professor Job. Anyway, this is actually more than just solid. You know, I like this a lot more than Ice Fang Coddle in some ways, at least. A 4-card dig is really big. You know, you get to impulse, basically, when this comes into play. And then, if it ever does die, you get that card. And it's pretty easy to make this die, but it doesn't have to actually die. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself here. If this just leaves the battlefield for literally any reason, you get that card. So if it gets exiled, if it gets blinked, if it gets bounced back to your hand, all of these things will get you your card advantage. And that seems great, especially in decks built to repeat this effect over and over and just find key combo pieces or even just like good stuff. This seems like a fantastic card, and maybe, dare I deign to say in this video, one of the best 2-mana creatures that's ever drawn a card. Like, we got Wall of Blossoms in this set, and good times with Wall of Blossoms, but I'm way more excited about getting to play with this card. And by the way, speaking of decks that like to bounce and flicker their own creatures for repeatable value, I really haven't seen that many decks like that in Modern over the last few months or even years. Like, I guess there's Fairies, but even that deck's playability has kind of been waning in the face of more powerful decks over the last few months. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that as far as decks that want this effect, there's been kind of a string of disappearances lately. But it's exactly the card that I think might bring decks like that back. Okay, so there's no denying that that was definitely a Professor joke. But anyway, String of Disappearances is amazing to me. Just to my eyes, people are calling this the Blue Chain Lightning, but you're very rarely going to target yourself with Chain Lightning. You can target your own creatures with this, and if you have enough blue mana, just keep the string going, you know, and that's actually really cool. With creatures like the last two I just profiled, you know, Icefang Coddle, Watcher for Tomorrow, you can bounce those, pay a couple of more mana, and then bounce one of your opponent's creatures, which is really, really sweet. Or you can just bounce more of your creatures, however many you have the mana for. And if Icefang Coddle and Watcher for Tomorrow are a little bit too cute for you, String of Disappearances just happens to be in the same colors as Snapcaster Mage. So imagine a mid-game or late-game turn where you bounce your own Snapcaster Mage back to your hand, pay the extra 2 blue, and then bounce like one of your opponent's best creatures back to their hand. How much tempo is that? You know, you get another use out of your Snapcaster and their best creature is off the battlefield, and that might actually be a huge play for a lot of decks. And there's much more than Snapcaster. That is just the tip of the iceberg. No joke in a snow themed set, but still, I think that there is really an awful lot to dig through when it comes to this card. Now for this next card, I wanted its art on screen behind me because it has really cool art, but I searched the internet, I just couldn't find Defile. Worst joke in the video, but that doesn't mean Defile isn't good. You know, I'd say that this is the most like Rocky-like card on this list because it's the underdog in a fight against, you know, a veteran performer, Fatal Push. This is, you know, kind of competes a good bit with Fatal Push in the 1-drop removal slot. And honestly, Defile's movie will probably end the same way Rocky does. Spoilers, Apollo Creed wins. But hopefully you've seen Rocky. It's been long enough. But anyway, I'm not saying that this card is better than Fatal Push, although, let me pull the cheese-eating grin here. Although, late in the game, and sometimes even in the mid-game in a mono-black deck, this is going to be better than Fatal Push. You won't have to revolt it, and in some ways it's going to be better than even a revolted Fatal Push. Because if you have, you know, 4 or 5 swamps out, then this is just going to be, you know, it's going to be able to kill stuff Fatal Push can't even kill. So I actually think there are plenty of reasons to pay attention to Defile, and they're not all just Pauper reasons. Although, obviously, in Pauper is great. It's a great piece of removal that decks will play. Both decks that play Gurmag Angler and decks that want to beat Gurmag Angler will probably play Defile. You know, Mono Black, this looks like an amazing removal piece, and Pauper Mono Black is already a very popular, very competitive Pauper deck, so I expect it to go there, but I'm talking Modern here, baby. I actually think this might move all the way up to a really competitive format like Modern. Not saying Pauper's not competitive. There are very powerful cards in Pauper, but I really am trying to like fight my way out of this hole I've just dug with Pauper players. All I'm saying is that this I do think has the chops for a format with like Modern that has, you know, let's face it, much more powerful pieces in a format like Pauper. Now, number 4 is probably the most underrated card in the video. I would say this is probably flying under the radar more than any other card we'll talk about, and I was really tempted to make it number 1, but nah, number 4, we'll go with Mind Rake. Although a Mind Leaf Blower would be more effective, I still like Mind Rake an awful lot, y'all. Like, let me just tell you, I don't think people are talking about this card near enough. There are a couple of decks that might want this. Arclight Phoenix, Grixis Phoenix, is a good choice to begin with. I'll see you in a second, Ziggy. He wants to get down for now. I don't know what adventures he has to go on, but he's got things he needs to do. He's a grown man. Anyway, Mind Rake could go fairly well in an Arclight Phoenix deck. Don't pluralize decks there. Although there are multiple Phoenix decks. Keep yabbering in this video. But my point with Mind Rake, to be succinct, is that obviously this allows you to drop your Phoenixes in the graveyard, plural. I can pluralize that one. And also gets answers out of your opponent's hand, which is really important for these, you know, fast combo decks. They really don't want their opponent to be able to answer stuff. And having Mind Rot for 2 mana that also enables your own discarding strategy, that's very good. This could also go really well in Hollow One. I'll just throw that one out there too, like another played Modern deck that's tiered, you know. It's a pretty good deck. And Mind Rake looks fantastic for a deck like that. You know, you get answers out of your opponent's hand at this amazing rate. And then you just drop Hollow One for very nearly free, you know, 1 mana on turn 3 or whatever. You drop your Hollow One, and that just seems like a great play to me. So, I don't know. Maybe this card is being talked about more than I currently know of, but I've I've been everywhere looking at takes on this set, and Mind Rake is probably one of the least mentioned cards that I've actually seen, and I don't understand why, because this card looks like it has a lot of playability in decks that are like already things in Modern. Getting answers out of your opponent's hand while also advancing your plan is something that a lot of combo decks really crave. It's what plants crave. So I just don't see why Mind Rake isn't getting a little bit more attention right now. But oh boy, we're in the top 3, and I'm going to make everybody mad. Because number 3, so sorry to say, is Force of Virtue. Okay, so whenever you're done booing and hitting dislike, I will go on. Okay, I'm giving you ample time. What, guy in the back? Okay, I think we're quiet now. So, here's the thing about Force of Virtue. First of all, I think this card has to have one defender on the internet, and I'm the man for the job. And I honestly don't understand why everyone hates a free Anthem effect. A free Anthem effect. How do you hate that? You can play it at the end of your opponent's first turn if you really want to do that, and that seems good. Like, put it this way. 2 things. Is it the worst? Is it the worst one? No. The red one is probably the worst one. Is it the best one? No. But it's also the only one of the forces in this set that's permanent. Think about it that way, huh? Right? It's the only one that has an effect on every turn of the game after you play it. And again, you just can't say that about even the best ones, like the blue force, the black force. You know, this just continues to affect the board every single turn for the rest of the game after you play it. And that seems good. For a free card, that seems very good to me. And in like mono white decks that just want to kill you as quickly as possible with 1-drops, this seems fine. This seems like it probably makes your plan a little faster, even if you do have to pitch a card to it. I'm not going to lie to you. Mono white, white weenie, whatever you want to call it, doesn't want to pitch a card. It needs to use all of its cards as efficiently as possible from its opening hand. I get that. But at the counterpoint, free Anthem effect. I just don't see like the hang up. It's like maybe we all saw the blue and the black one and the green one for what that's worth. And we were like, oh, this cycle's going to be boss, y'all. Get ready. Buckle in because it's going to be crazy. And we saw this and we're like, Anthem effect. Ho-hum, But honestly, I think we've all kind of I don't know what we were expecting the white one to be. Like, I think some people wanted, like, Path to Exile, but it's free, and we're just not going to get it. We're not going to get that. So instead, we got an Anthem effect that you can play at the end of your opponent's first or second turn or whatever, or during your opponent's combat step. Imagine how good that is in aggro mirrors to just blow them out with a free Force of Virtue during their combat step. That seems good. Or just if the game goes relatively late, or even in the mid-game, you can just dump this for 4 mana with Flash. Like, you can just pay the mana cost for it, and I know you're not going to do it very often, but the 10% of the time that you do it, it's going to be worth it to do it. So I don't know why everyone on the internet hates a free Anthem effect, and I'm here to defend it for even just a couple of minutes. I think it deserves that. Then again, it might all be virtue signaling. I hate the term virtue signaling so much, but I couldn't resist the joke. But anyway, my number 2, for just a second, I want to talk about one of the most underrated Game Boy games of all time, Aria of Sorrow. Now, in the Metroidvania subgenre, I think this is one of the most criminally underrated games. What? Oh, it's Aria of Flame. I thought I was finally going to get to talk about video games. I guess that's cool. I get to talk about Aria of Flames. This card's really good to me. First of all, one of the things that I like about this are all the various, like, wombo combos. Like the big Live the Dream combo is Tainted Remedy because it just deals 10 damage to them. That seems pretty good. Seems pretty good, my dude. But at the same time, you can also just, like, alongside Skullcrack, seems good enough. Just like even a Tybalt, Rakish Instigator, if you really want to play that card in Modern, I don't think you do, but still, anything that keeps your opponent from gaining life just makes Aria a way better card. Immediately better card. Obviously, Tainted Remedy, again, is what you want to be doing. But if all of that is just slightly too cute for you, I think another decent use that might also be too cute for you, but I still think it's a little bit better than these ridiculous combos, is just playing it in a Storm deck. to avoid having to play a card like Grape Shot or, Tendrils of Agony or something like that. Just you don't have to play a kill spell that is an instant or a sorcery and that you storm out for all game over the course of, one big turn. You don't necessarily have to do that. Aria of Flame allows you to take it a little bit easier, even though, I'll give you this. Taking a turn off to play a do-nothing enchantment is not exactly Storm's Biscuits and Jam. But, counterpoint, if they do take off that third turn, I think they actually win the game a lot more consistently, because on turn 4, you usually start storming off, and yeah, you can cast Grape Shot that turn, win the game, whatever, but there's a lot of ways to disrupt it. My argument is that especially if you're on the play Aria of Sorrow, again with that, I really like that game, I do. Aria of Flame allows you to get up under a lot more shields than, say, storming off on turn 4 or 5 allows you to get under, just because it comes down a turn earlier than you're usually going to be winning the game in a lot of these Storm decks. Realistically, there are Storm decks that can pull off early wins, but it's like getting a Royal Flush. It happens 1 out of 72,000 times, and I think the odds of a Royal Flush are actually much lower than that. But anyway, my point is, your odds of pulling off intensely fast wins with Storm and Modern are slightly low. Lower than you want them to be realistically. So a card like this, if again you take off a turn to do it, allows you to just get these huge returns in the next couple of turns. All you have to do is start casting a few spells, and you're just doing like really big, reliable damage to the opponent, all because of Flame, and I think that it adds up like really, really quickly. So I don't know. Aria of Flame kind of looked at as like a Johnny card that probably won't go the distance. It's way too cute to actually do anything. But in the end, this one might matter. This one might matter. I think that this effect is just too powerful and accumulates way too quickly. Is that another snow joke? I think it might be. Anyway, the level of value you get out of this accumulates way too quickly to be ignored, and your opponent kind of has to do something about it in a deck that's playing spell after spell after spell every single turn, because they're just going to die really, really quickly, and you don't actually have to even be hitting them with burn or anything to do it. But here we are, number 1 most underappreciated card in the set. I'll put it that way, because this card has been getting some attention, but nearly all of it is negative, and that is Collected Conjuring. Now, I don't know that Isn't Coco is good right now, but my reason for it being a sleeper is the classic best reason for a card being a sleeper, and that is that it is literally asleep. It lays dormant for as long as it needs to. This is Modern, a non-rotating format, until the right cards get printed, which is not to say that the right cards don't already exist. There's a lot of really cute stuff you could do with this. If you wanted to mill your opponent out, you could always hit stuff like, Mind Funeral, I guess. Glimpse the Unthinkable is another one. Sanity Grinding, all these things that just hit your opponent for all of the mills that could actually kind of work for just 4 mana. But of course you could mill yourself if you wanted to. Not with really any of those except for Glimpse the Unthinkable, but there's plenty of things, Compelling Argument, for instance. You hit a Glimpse and a Compelling Argument, you mill yourself for 15 cards, get all your your Creeping Chills, your Narcomoebas, your Arclight Phoenixes, all that into your graveyard, and just have this huge turn on turn 4 if you hit those cards. But if that's not a compelling argument to you, I completely understand. But if you want a really good, not too cute thing to do with it that already exists, this is yet another thing that just casts suspend cards for free. Like that seems like a good thing to do with it. And although we've seen a few other ways of doing it, especially recently, so there are other options you could go for, I think Collected Conjuring is one of the best avenues to casting these cards. Things like Ancestral Vision. One of the best things you can do with Collected Conjuring is hit an Ancestral Vision. But there's, Living End seems fine. Restore Balance seems like a big game too. And even like the new green suspend card that gets you a couple of 4/4s. Putting 8 power on the battlefield and casting another spell for 4 mana actually seems huge. So I'm not counting Conjuring out. I actually think that there are plenty of ways you could make a deck right this second that abuses this card to a huge extent. But if nothing else, You know, sorceries will continue to get printed as long as Magic is a game, which hopefully, and I believe, will be a very, very long time. So as long as this card exists in the modern format, which again, will be forever, then there's definitely a chance that Wizards prints something that breaks this completely in half. So if nothing else, keep your eye on it, but I think there's reasons to look at it right this second. But that's it for my list, at least. That's all 10, really 11, counting the honorable mention of the cards that I wanted to shine a little bit more of a spotlight on than is currently being shown, I guess. Or cards that I wanted to defend. You know, things like Collected Conjuring and Force of Virtue, they're all cards that have gotten some talk around the water cooler, but again, none of it's been positive. So I want to be that guy that defends some cards that I think look pretty good, but most of the community is a little gripey about, so maybe that wasn't the right word. But still, let me know how you felt about all these down there in the comments section, or any cards I missed that you think are way under the radar, aren't getting half the attention they deserve. Let me know in the comments section. I'm all ears. But aside from that, a call to action again. Just do the YouTube stuff. Like, share. I don't know if anybody shares videos, but do it. Share it around. Comment again. Subscribe with the bell for notifications. Join the Patreon if you want to do that. It would really help out around here if you want to support content like mine. Or you can hit up the affiliate link, because my channel is sponsored by TCG Player, and if you wanted to get in on any of these cards while they're still relatively cheap and under the radar, now would be the time to do it. So hit the link in the description if you want to do that thing. But aside from that, I guess I'm done for this one. So I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.